Right, a pilgrimage for Brian Haw, a spiritual journey of relevance, from the ruins of Barking Abbey to Canterbury Cathedral by Lady Miller. That's me. Right, not my light here. It's great. I'm on the other side of the church, but yeah, probably going to take this moment. We've reached the Vigo Inn and spending a night there and having a lovely time. Vandy and Val, they're going to let me stay, and I just had to just so dark on the other side. I was really struggling to read. Yeah, it started to rain, but the sun's come out now. So just probably take this moment to say, yeah, this is the 15th anniversary of when I did this pilgrimage. And I'm sort of doing it in real time. This time 15 years ago, I was in the Vigo Inn speaking to Andy, you know. Hey, as we're going to find out in a bit, time don't really exist though. Right, so here we go. Right, so Andy's just asked me to just carry on talking. Can only oblige. Right. There was still only me and him left in the pub, and Val only showed her face every now and then as she was beginning to close up for the night and was cooking their dinner in the kitchen. The beers were making me feel quite talkative, and seeing as Andy appeared to be in a listening mood, I carried on talking. There's an amazing thing I read recently in a great book called Supernatural by a guy called Graham Hancock. I began, what's that then? Andy asked. Well, basically, the book's about the hidden history of mankind and questions the mainstream view of human history, asking how it was possible for humans to have been supposedly primitive officially for such a long period of time, but then to have formed sophisticated language and civilizations suddenly and only 10,000 years ago or so. He started investigating the commonalities in the cave art found around the world, and then the book went from there. Apparently, a bloke called David Lewis Williams came up with a theory that commonalities in cave art from different periods in time and at different locations around the world could be explained by humans going into altered states of consciousness by the use of hallucinogenic drugs derived from plants available in different parts of the world, and recording what they saw. From Hancock's research and from the study of the experiences conducted by scientists whose subjects were given LSD, there was a lot of substance to his theories, because the same commonalities in their visual experience to that of many cave paintings acquired in the modern day I was getting tired, man. I'm getting old. Alright, let's do that again. I can't watch my eyes. Right, sorry about this. Right, well basically the book's about the hidden history of mankind and questions the mainstream view of human history, asking how it was possible for humans to have been supposedly primitive officially for such a long period of time, but then to have formed sophisticated language and civilizations suddenly and only 10,000 years ago or so. He started investigating the commonalities in the cave art found around the world, and then the book just went from there. Apparently a bloke called David Lewis Williams came up with a theory that commonalities in cave art from different periods and in different times and from different locations around the world could be explained by humans going into altered states of consciousness by the use of hallucinogenic drugs derived from plants available in the different parts of the world, and recording what they saw. From Graham Hancock's research and from the studies of the experiments conducted by scientists whose subjects were given LSD, there was a lot of substance to this theory, because the same commonalities in their visual experience to that of many cave paintings occurred in the modern day subjects taking LSD, I explained. It's pretty amazing. You're a very intelligent man, Andy repeated again while appearing to be totally focused on what I was saying, and Val walked by giving me a strange look. Again, I thought that it wasn't so much that I was intelligent, it was more that I was just repeating intelligent information. Anyway, I continued, that's not even the most fascinating part of the book. What I found the most astonishing was what Graham Hancock wrote about a phenomenon called Zipf's law. What's that then? Andy inquired. Basically, a fellow called Zipf, I'm sorry but I can't remember his first name, was a linguist and studied different languages. He began to rank the frequency of words in text and from different languages and made a startling discovery. No matter what substantial body of text he studied in any language, he found an exact link between the most frequently used words to that of the 10th most frequently used words to that of the 100th most frequently used word. Put it simply, if the most frequently used word was ranked 1, was used 1,000 times, the 10th most frequently used word, ranked 10, would be used 100 times, and the 100th most frequently used word, ranked 100, would be used 10 times. Asterisk, George Zipf discovered Zipf's law in 1939. That's what we're talking about now. It wasn't a correlation, he discovered, it was a straight line between the rank of a word and its frequency it is used, and this applied to every single human language, from Arabic to English, from Japanese to Urdu. It's mental, mate, I said excitedly. That's unbelievable, and he said, while taking in what I was saying. Yeah, I know, and it shows that there must be a common consciousness between all of us, and that we must be linked in some way through it. At least that's what it says to me, but that's not the most amazing part of it though. I don't know if you know, but apparently when Francis Crick and another geezer who, I'm sorry, again I can't remember his name either, discovered the DNA code, he did so after being under the influence of LSD. Basically he had experimented with interdimensional travel and came back inspired with the information for the DNA code. He reckoned he had seen a double helix on his trip. The thing is, Graham Hancock then went on to study some research carried out at Boston University, which was investigating the nature of the DNA code. The researchers noticed that DNA was comprised of patterns of base pairs, which were 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 pairings in length, and they thought that they were comparable to words, so they applied Zipf's law to the sequences. They found no distinct link to the base pairs which scientists had attributed to our relevant DNA, the part of the DNA which is the blueprint of our form, our body, our structure. But when they applied it to the 97% of what our scientists ludicrously call junk DNA, they found a positive correlation and an almost perfect line. In short, they discovered the evidence of a language encrypted into our junk DNA. I finished saying once more, taking a breather and having another swig of my beer. That's amazing, Andy said, and paused for thought. There's a lot more to this world than the things we're taught at school, Andy, and that's a fact. Francis Crick reckoned that it was almost impossible for our DNA to have evolved by chance, and that it must have been designed or seeded by an extraterrestrial intelligence, I said. Andy didn't say a word, but just digested what I had said and contemplated. There's so much to understand and learn about the universe and our own human history, I said. I've only just recently got to grips with the nature of time itself. What do you mean? Andy replied. Talk about time itself, mate. I've had a long day today. And England's going to be playing soon. I've got to get this done. Right, asterisk. James Watson was the gentleman who co-discovered the DNA helix along with Francis Crick in 1953, and they apparently first announced their discovery to the world in the safe and secure surroundings of a civilised English pub. Top job. Asterisk again. The research was headed by, this is the research for DNA code, the research was headed by Professor Eugene Stanley in 1994 at Boston University and Harvard Medical School for the Zipf's law applying to the junk DNA. Anyway, right, on to time. How much time I got? Right, Time doesn't exist, mate. It's something we've invented so that we can put our experience into some kind of perspective, some kind of order. There is no such thing as time. Everything that has ever happened and everything that will ever happen has happened in one moment. And that's why a lot of spiritual teachings teach you to live in the moment, because the present is a gift. And it's also why there's no point continually looking to the future or hanging on to the past. Be here now is the phrase, I think, I said. I don't understand, Andy replied. To be honest, it took me a while to truly get my head around it myself. I understood the concept, but it's one thing to understand the concept of something, and it's another understanding its reality. Like I say, it took me about 2 years of contemplating to get my head around it. That's 2 years in what we perceive to be time, I joked, and then continued. I wasn't thinking about it all of the time, of course. I just had it on the back burner of my mind, simmering away, and it gave it a few moments of consideration every so often. But when you get it, you really get it. Basically, we think of time as running consistently in moments, from like moment A to moment B, onto moment C, then moment D. When we live in moment D, we are assume that moment E will be in the future, and that moment C is now in the past, like this. So it's like A, B, C, D, E. These are all the moments, and we think, yeah, E's going to be in front of D, and C is still going to be there. Yeah, that's we've gone through there now. But actually, that's a moment flow. A, B, C, D. But actually, the moments don't flow like that, because they are stacked up upon each other. As there is no future and no past, there is just the now. The moment point of our perspective. I just got held up in time then. I then started to place my hands outstretched and flattened hands from being side by side to on top of one another, like so. So yeah, we think that A, B, C, D, E, but it's actually A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. But then, what we're actually experiencing is a change of our perspective through those moments that have already taken place. But it goes further, because there is not a sequence of moments at all, actually, as there is in fact only one moment, and everything has been condensed into that one moment. I then placed my outstretched and flattened hand on top of each other, and then took one hand away in order to demonstrate that one moment, like so. So A, B, C, D, E, but actually they're all compressed together, and then it's just the one moment. Now, I've rewritten this book, and in it, because I've learnt more since then, I've understood more, and what's actually going in that moment, you have it's in a burus, and you have the time, the future and the past that are coming into that moment of the now. That's what's happening, and that's why the Ouroboros, or the infinity symbol, that's what that's about in spirituality. That's why. So that's time coming in to the moment. We're always in that moment, but the past and the future coming into the moment too. So yeah, I've rewritten this. So I've lost my page. Right. Okay. Almost there. Come on. Right. Oh, my eyes are... Right. And in that moment, everything that has ever happened or will ever happen has taken place. We are merely experiencing aspects of it as we journey through our perspective. So in effect, time doesn't really exist. It just has been invented in order to help us understand and learn from our experience. And time gives us the perspective to view the experience. This is what I understand, I explained. You're a very intelligent man, Andy declared once more. It's not so much I'm intelligent, I repeated, it's just that I've taken time to ask these questions and contemplate their answers. And that's the truth. But why are you different? Why Why have you been asking these questions, Andy? Then asked, seeming to be quite genuinely mystified. I don't know, mate, but I've always asked them since I was a kid. I've always seemed to know that there's something more going on in the world, something more to it than I was seeing. To be honest, it's taken a long time to find things out. But the biggest catalyst for my question was when I was at college and doing human biology in one of my subject lessons. My biology teacher, who was very good, I have to say, stated the fact that human beings are only using 10% of their brain capacity. I couldn't believe it, and so I asked him why. It's just the way it is, he answered, almost dismissively. And I remember almost having a stand-up row with him for not answering me properly and trying to avoid my continuing questioning, as if it doesn't matter, as if it didn't matter. Firstly, I thought that it was mental for that to be the truth. And secondly, I thought it was madness that no one else was questioning this fact. I couldn't understand why it happened, why it didn't appear to matter to anyone. The biggest question I had when I was 16 were, it wasn't when West Ham could win the FA Cup, I think it's that. Biggest questions I had when I was 16 were, what has happened to the human race which has made us lose the ability to have access to so much of our brain? Second question, what abilities do we possess if we gain complete access to them again? That's what was in my mind at 16. Well, that and playing basketball, I guess. Val appeared again and had a stern look for Andy. She explained that dinner was on the go and that it was now past closing time, and if he wouldn't mind, could he stop talking and start closing up for the evening. Andy realised that we had both lost track of time, was all apologies to Val, and immediately started clearing the bar. It's very interesting what you've said tonight, Andy said, while taking my nearly empty pint glass and then filling it to halfway with another shot of Deutschland's finest. Cheers, mate, I said, referring to the unexpected top-up and not to the compliment. Alright, still going. I continued to have piecemeal chat with Andy about the things I had spoken about that evening, and while he finished work for the night, I finished my beer. And while he finished work for the night, I finished my beer. Meanwhile, Val kept popping out from the kitchen and reminding Andy that dinner was ready. I had a feeling, because she had only overheard brief excerpts of our conversation throughout the evening, that she probably wondered what on earth we had been talking about all night long. It was now gone past midnight, so it was no wonder that Val was now on Andy's case to get sorted. But she still gave me a warm smile, and I figured it was time for me to set up camp. I downed the last remains of my topped up pint and bidded them a good night with much appreciation and thanks. Then I headed for the beer garden, a little bit merry because I had been drinking on an empty stomach. Then I found the floodlights to switch them on and set in motion my evening routine. I found a nice spot in the beer garden, pitched my tent, settled in and began to cook some pasta on my mess burner. Although it was a bit late to cook, I was absolutely gagging to eat and was completely Hank Marvin. My stomach was now growling to a starving tune, which was actually doing its best to mimic an instrumental record by the Shadows. Just as I was getting sorted, Andy suddenly appeared and came over to me. I'm ever so sorry, Lee. It was very rude of me, but we're eating and I didn't offer you to come and join us. You must be hungry, he said in such a caring tone of voice. Oh, it's okay, Andy. I've got some pasta on the go. I'm cool. It's bachelors. It's Bachelor's finest. I'm all good.